Hey there! This lovely manhwa is titled How to Make My Tyrant Husband Love Me. If you love stories like this, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll never miss the next episode. A modern woman cycling at night encounters a mysterious bus and suddenly finds herself transported into the body of Belita, the villain from a romance novel called The Flower on the Battlefield. Belita is the notorious adulterous empress of the Kartan Empire, known for her lustful behavior and destined to die in the first chapter. She awakens in a dark forest where Prince Amer of the Kingdom of Roka is attempting to force himself on her. The woman, now in Belita's body, pushes him away and runs through the forest. She realizes she's become the character who was supposed to die that very night, executed alongside Emer by Emperor Kaliq after being caught in their affair. When Emperor Kaliq arrives with his sword drawn, ready to execute both lovers as the original story dictated, the woman makes a desperate decision. Instead of accepting her fate, she tells Kaliq she was running from Amer, not eloping with him, claiming she never had an affair with anyone, because survival instincts override fictional plot armor. Kaliq, surprised by this unexpected turn, demands she prove she's truly his wife. What follows is an intense encounter in the moonlit forest, where Belita's body seems to remember what her mind doesn't, how to respond to her husband's touch. The passionate exchange saves her life, though she's left confused about what exactly happened afterward. She survives the night and wakes up in an ornate palace bedroom, bandaged from her forest escape. Here's where things get awkward. The original Belita's lifestyle becomes painfully clear. She discovers that the notorious Empress was attended by multiple men for everything: baths, massages, daily activities. The modern woman inhabiting her body keeps fainting and screaming when half-naked male servants show up, much to everyone's bewilderment. Madame Carnell, Belita's attendant, notices something is definitely different about the princess, who used to thrive around men, but now actively avoids them. Meanwhile, Kaliq watches skeptically, wondering how long this sudden personality change will last, suspecting it's just another one of Belita's fickle phases. The woman realizes her survival has completely derailed the original plot. According to the story, both she and Amer should have died, triggering a war between kingdoms that would eventually lead to the emperor's downfall. Now she must navigate palace life while maintaining her reformed image, all while worrying about the unpredictable consequences of changing the narrative and hoping Amer doesn't show up to complicate things further. She's essentially stuck playing a character whose reputation precedes her in the worst possible way, trying to convince a husband who has every reason to want her dead that she's suddenly become a faithful wife, all while avoiding the small army of male companions the original Belita apparently kept on speed dial. Kaliq gives Belita 1 week to prove she's genuinely reformed, requiring daily meetings to assess whether her behavior befits an empress. Meanwhile, Prince Amer rots in the dungeons, still obsessed with Belita and trying to bribe guards with jewelry. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. Belita discovers the full horror of her predecessor's lifestyle when she finds a secret BDSM chamber in the conservatory and learns about the Mr. Kartan Contest, an annual event where shirtless men competed to become Belita's personal servants. She immediately orders the room repainted and cancels the contest because nothing says "I've reformed" like eliminating your personal harem selection process. During her first test meeting with Kaliq, things get awkward when he asks her to massage his legs. While trying to prove she's a proper wife, she accidentally touches his inner thigh, leading to a mortifying moment that convinces him she's still trying to seduce him. The poor woman literally cannot win. The political situation takes a dramatic turn when Grand Duke Kuro Brunoir manifests a divine white horse with a purple mane. This is significant because only those who manifest divine creatures before age 30 can become emperor, and Kaliq is approaching 30 with no creature in sight. Previous emperors had impressive divine animals like electric wolves and giant polar bears, while Kaliq apparently can't even manage a divine hamster. The nobles immediately start plotting treason, with Kuro positioning himself as the rightful future emperor. They mock Kaliq's inability to produce an heir, thanks to his unchaste empress refusing him, and question his imperial bloodline. The conspirators represent the rotten apple of the empire from the original story, the villains who would start a war using Kuro's divine horse. Belita encounters this treasonous group while walking through the palace with Madame Carnel, who warns her to reject whatever they say. She realizes these are the antagonists who will cause the political upheaval that leads to the empire's downfall in the original story. The woman inhabiting Belita's body now faces an even more complex situation. She must not only convince her husband she's reformed while navigating the week-long test, but also deal with political conspirators who see the emperor's weakness as their opportunity to seize power. Belita encounters Kuro and his conspirators in the palace, where they shower her with flattery and kiss her hand. Kuro notices something different about her aura, making her nervous that her identity switch might be discovered. She tries to maintain composure while wondering about any past relationship between the original Belita and Kuro, thankfully learning from Madame Carnel that nothing inappropriate had ever occurred between them. Determined to completely reform her image, Belita orders all male servants removed from her palace and converts her predecessor's secret BDSM chamber into a proper rest area. She instructs Madame Carnel to inform her immediately about anyone who had history with the original Belita, realizing she needs to know every potential complication. The political situation explodes during a noble council meeting about the war with Uklo, when nobles start questioning Kaliq's fitness to rule and suggesting the crown should pass to the next heir. The emperor's legendary temper erupts. He materializes a glowing energy sword, brutally executes a knight who was caught passing treasonous notes, covering Duke Santino in blood, and reminding everyone why he's called the bloodthirsty tyrant. The situation worsens when Kaliq discovers his favorite white horse has mysteriously vanished. He realizes Gucero must have stolen it to create his divine creature, essentially trapping Kaliq's own horse inside Gucero's manifestation. With no proof of the theft and no divine creature of his own to counter Gucero's power, Kaliq finds himself in an increasingly desperate position as his 30th birthday approaches. The palace staff notices dramatic changes in Belita's behavior. She now reprimands Lisa, a maid who previously enjoyed spreading gory details about the emperor's executions, and shows genuine kindness to other servants. The transformation is so complete that maids who used to fear her now call her like an angel. However, some servants remain suspicious of the sudden personality change. Lisa, in particular, is confused about why someone who used to enjoy hearing about Kaliq's violent deeds now seems afraid of him. Belita continues to struggle with her reformed image, while dealing with the reality that her husband is a genuinely terrifying ruler who casually decapitates people during meetings, yet she must somehow maintain their relationship to survive in this increasingly dangerous political environment. The political crisis deepens when Kaliq finally manifests his own divine creature, a magnificent white tiger that appears with glowing blue energy. However, this comes at a terrible cost, as he suffers from a chronic illness that killed both his parents, leaving him physically weakened and in constant pain. The manifestation process is described as torment, with Kaliq bleeding and requiring medical attention. The imperial family dynamics add another layer of complexity. Kaliq has a half-brother, the gray-haired brother, who refuses to acknowledge his legitimacy, calling him a bastard and expressing open contempt for his humble bloodline. This creates additional political instability as questions about succession rights fuel the conspiracy against Kaliq. When Belita learns Kaliq is ill, she decides to visit him as a proper empress should, bringing homemade cold black tea as a get-well gift. Her nighttime visit shocks the guards, who consider both her and Gucero to be the emperor's arch-enemies, making her concern seem impossible. Despite Kaliq's suspicion that she might be trying to poison him, Belita proves the tea's safety by drinking it herself. When he dismisses this as insufficient proof, since poison takes time to work, she performs twirls to demonstrate she's perfectly fine, a moment that shows both her desperation and genuine effort to care for him. The breakthrough comes when Kaliq, bored and testing her, demands she sing for him. Belita's performance is spectacularly awful. So bad that Kaliq's ears literally bleed from the screeching. Disaster. But her sincere effort and obvious embarrassment actually make him laugh, creating their first genuinely positive moment together. Duke Dane witnesses this unprecedented scene of the Emperor actually smiling and laughing with the Empress, wondering if her transformation might be genuine after all. The palace intrigue intensifies as nobles continue spreading doubts about Kaliq's legitimacy, much of it traced back to Kuro's influence. Meanwhile, the imperial family history is revealed. The previous emperor had a loving first marriage that produced an heir, but after his wife's death, remarried and had Kaliq, creating succession complications. Just when it seems Belita might be making progress with her reform, Lisa, her troublesome maid, tries to help by preparing what she thinks is a thoughtful gift, a half-dressed, blindfolded man ready to spend the night with the Empress. This represents exactly the kind of situation Belita has been desperately trying to avoid, threatening to undo all her progress just when she might be winning Kaliq's trust. Lisa, the purple-haired maid, gets herself fired after sneaking a man into the Empress's palace. She genuinely thought she was being helpful by choosing someone who looked like Belita's favorite knight, a spectacular misreading of the room. Belita slaps her and banishes her permanently. Lisa protests that she's been loyal and even helped the original Belita elope with Prince Emir, but current Belita has no memory of this and shows her the door anyway. For the first time ever, Belita actually enjoys a meal with Kaliq, savoring her steak and praising the food enthusiastically. When she brings up the Mr. Kartan Contest, Kaliq immediately assumes she wants more money and refuses. Plot twist. She wants to cancel it entirely and give back the 500,000 gold budget. Kaliq stares at her like she's grown a second head. Who voluntarily gives up house buying money? Kaliq orders cold black tea for Belita, remembering her preference. Touched by this gesture, she impulsively hugs him from behind. Kaliq panics, convinced he's become her next conquest target, and promptly spills hot tea on himself like a nervous teenager. Belita fusses over his burn with genuine concern, while he stares at her transformation, both catching feelings they didn't expect. He then bolts from the room faster than a startled deer. Kaliq realizes Belita's father is trying to secure her position by offering doubled supplies, so he decides to triple the offer as a power move. Meanwhile, Grand Duke Kuro plays the sympathy card with the bedridden Santino, sending wine and lonely notes, while his divine beast grows stronger. Kuro's feeling confident about his throne prospects, since Kaliq still has no divine creature. During their daily outdoor time, Belita notices Kaliq looks tired and boldly offers her lap as a pillow. After her previous singing humiliation, she figured her dignity can't sink much lower. He accepts, and she strokes his hair while he sleeps peacefully. The watching maids find it adorable, and Belita realizes this tyrant is just a man who needs rest. When Kaliq wakes up, he He demands to know who she really is, since her personality has done a complete 180. She explains she's trying to be a proper empress and had to transform completely. He accepts this explanation, but they accidentally fall together in what looks very compromising to the gossiping maids. That evening, Kaliq convinces himself that Belita deliberately seduced him and marches to her chambers to finish what they started. Despite her confusion and protests, they share an intense, passionate kiss. Just as things reach their peak, Kaliq suddenly collapses, and Belita witnesses his divine beast manifesting, a glowing creature with a yellow eye surrounded by blue energy. Belita realizes the original story has gone completely off the rails. Kaliq was never supposed to have a divine beast, several major characters haven't died as planned, and Lisa got kicked out early. She understands they're now writing their own story instead of following the predetermined tragic ending. Looking at the unconscious Kaliq, she pleads for him to live so they can survive together. The palace erupts in whispers about the emperor and empress spending the night together. The servants are thrilled, hoping their mistress has finally found the right man. Both Kaliq and Belita struggle with the emotional aftermath. He can't focus on paperwork and keeps reliving their kiss, while she's confused about whether she should continue their daily meetings now that he's promised not to kill her. Belita's emotional turmoil manifests physically. She can't eat, her face burns when thinking of Kaliq, and she feels constant pressure on her heart. Her attendant takes one look at these symptoms and delivers the diagnosis with medical certainty. Congratulations! You are lovesick. Before Belita can process this revelation, she's being dragged through the palace corridors to see Kaliq whether she likes it or not. The entire palace staff transforms into wing people, declaring that Her Majesty is lovesick and must see His Majesty immediately. Even when important dukes are waiting to report urgent matters, the servants prioritize the royal romance. Poor Sir Estierton tries to explain that someone has been waiting, but the staff has spoken. Love comes first. Belita arrives at Kaliq's office early, nervous and uncertain. When she mentions she knows about his divine beast, Kaliq's paranoia kicks in. He wonders if she's connected to some mysterious core. She explains that she saw his tiger when they kissed, and he collapsed. The beast is massive, fully grown, and absolutely vicious looking. Just like him, she notes helpfully. Unlike Grand Duke Kyuro's mere foal, Kaliq's divine creature is complete and powerful. Learning about his divine beast overwhelms Kaliq with emotion. He grabs Belita's wrist, and they share another intense moment, kissing passionately among red flowers. When palace staff try to interrupt with urgent Duke business, the brown-haired woman slaps the messenger and tells him to read the room. The couple is in love for the first time and deserves support, not interruptions. The story jumps to Belita and Kaliq standing at an altar during their wedding ceremony. Belita has a moment of clarity, thinking that technically she's only just met him and wondering if this is all moving too fast. Post-wedding, she stands dazed and blushing, processing that Kaliq is now her husband and wondering what he's thinking about it all. Back in her chambers, Belita sits flushed and overwhelmed, still feeling the effects of their encounters. While she reflects on how important it was to tell Kaliq about his divine beast, the greatest gift she could give him, her body finally gives out from weeks of stress and exhaustion. She collapses, her teacup shattering on the floor. Belita falls seriously ill with a fever that won't break. When Kaliq learns she's collapsed, he's struck with immediate panic and rushes to her bedside. Sitting beside her unconscious form while servants tend to her with cold compresses, he realizes she might have already been unwell when she came to his office and feels terrible for not noticing her condition. Duke Kyuro arrives at the palace to gawk at the supposedly weakened Kaliq, showing off his own divine beast, a white horse with a glowing purple mane. He smugly mentions that Kaliq's white horse has disappeared from the palace, essentially taunting him about losing control. But Kiro's mockery backfires spectacularly when Kaliq's chest pain triggers the manifestation of his complete divine beast, a massive white tiger with glowing yellow eyes that leaves everyone stunned. Kiro realizes his plans for the throne just got a lot more complicated. While recovering from her fever, Belita discovers she has bigger problems than lovesickness. Duke Santino emerges from a secret passage in her dressing room floor like some kind of creepy mole person, making inappropriate advances and referencing their supposed monthly meetings. Turns out the original Belita had quite the active social calendar with various nobles. Current Belita responds by throwing a vase of water at him and having him thrown out, but not before learning about the secret passages that honeycombed the palace. Santino gets questioned about his late-night palace visits and, cornered by the interrogation, admits he went to see Empress Belita. When asked how he got past the impossible security, he reveals the existence of secret passages his family built generations ago. He spins an elaborate tale about their magnificent time together, but struggles to explain why he left completely drenched. Hint, it wasn't from a romantic bath. Belita's attendant suggests horseback riding for her health, leading to Sir Anton reluctantly teaching her on his day off. He's comically terrible at it, falling off even stationary horses, which puzzles Anton since he'd heard she was skilled at riding. He watches her persistent failures with growing confusion about who this woman really is. Under a red moon, Prince Aimer finds himself mysteriously freed from jail by Grand Duke Kiro, who has his own agenda. Kiro wants Aimer to bring Roka troops when he makes his move to kill Kaliq and claim the throne. In exchange, he offers Aimer the country of Felon, Belita's homeland, once he becomes emperor. Aimer claims noble motivations about saving people from a war maniac, but Kiro suspects his real motivation is more personal, likely involving Belita. Back in the palace, Kaliq discovers he actually enjoys sleeping in Belita's room and finds her presence peaceful. Shocking development for a man who usually trusts no one. Their relationship develops into a comfortable routine with regular outdoor meals, and Kaliq schedules an ambitious 3 horseback riding sessions per day, morning, afternoon, and evening. The court notices he's unusually good-humored after spending time with his wife, a dramatic change from his usual cold demeanor. Palace gossip reaches fever pitch as servants whisper about whether the emperor has finally fallen in love. The rumors get deliciously detailed. Stories spread about how he ran to her chambers in the middle of the night, still wet from his bath, with his robe hanging loose in his haste. When Kaliq catches his servants gossiping about his personal life, instead of executing them, his usual solution, he encourages them to keep spreading the stories so everyone knows about their improving relationship. The man has turned his staff into his PR team. Belita takes practical security measures, spending hours with Madame Carnell nailing iron plates over the secret passages Santino used. Meanwhile, Kaliq's belongings gradually migrate to her chambers. His toothbrush, towel, clothes, flower pots, and slippers all find permanent homes there. When Belita protests that her quarters are becoming his room, Madame Carnell's satisfied smile suggests this was always the plan. The evening brings their most significant bonding moment when Kaliq invites Belita to experience galloping, his former favorite activity that he'd abandoned after losing his beloved white horse. They ride together with Kaliq holding her close, creating an intensely romantic moment. Initially panicked by the speed, Belita gradually relaxes and finds it exhilarating. Overwhelmed by how well she bonds with her horse, Kaliq gifts the animal to her permanently. Their physical closeness during the ride leads to passionate kissing in the golden outdoor setting. Belita describes the sensation as ecstatic amid heat, like a swamp dragging her down into overwhelming feeling. The encounter transforms their relationship from political convenience into genuine romantic and physical connection, a major turning point in their marriage. The story has evolved from survival tactics and political maneuvering into what might actually be a functional royal romance, while conspiracies continue brewing in the background, with Quedu and Amor's plotting against the throne. After their passionate afternoon encounter, Belita declares they won't be sharing a bed that night, standing firmly in her doorway like a bouncer. When Kaliq asks why, she explains her whole body is sore from horseback riding. He's confused about what that has to do with sleeping arrangements until she spots her personal items laid out as if an invitation and gets embarrassed. She insists she needs alone time, which leads to Kaliq commenting about her being cold after that passionate seduction in the afternoon. Cue door slamming. The real reason? She's dealing with her period and needs privacy, but medieval euphemisms weren't invented yet. They have an adorably awkward goodnight conversation through the crack in the door, and once alone, Belita reflects that it's a shame to make him leave, but oh well. Meanwhile, Kaliq walks through the palace corridors looking like a man who's been temporarily evicted from paradise. Under a crimson moon, Prince Amor successfully escapes prison with help from his mysterious accomplice. Kaliq reveals to his advisor that he'd been expecting this escape attempt and had planned to use it to root out spies. However, the plan backfires when Amor and his helpers disappear completely after escaping through a hole in the West Tower wall like barbaric beasts. Kaliq's suspicions immediately turn to Grand Duke Kuro, whose timing of leaving and returning to the palace coincides suspiciously with the escape. While he doesn't consider Kuro and Amor a huge threat individually, he's worried they might try to ally with the kingdom of Uklo, the final, unconquered desert kingdom that represents his greatest challenge to complete unification. That night, Belita lies in bed, missing Kaliq's presence, despite having kicked him out. She reflects on how familiar his behavior has become and how their time together feels natural, but admits the bed feels empty tonight. The next morning, she appears tired and droopy, confessing she barely slept and felt weirdly lonely sleeping alone. She decides to nap until their afternoon appointment because apparently, even temporary separation has made them both miserable. The next day brings dark, rainy weather that cancels their horseback riding plans. Belita oversleeps on the couch, possibly still avoiding the bed situation, and Kaliq finds her there, snoring peacefully. He carries her to the proper bed in a bridal carry, contemplating their relationship and wondering what she truly wants. Is she playing innocent empress or genuinely trying to capture his heart? He reflects that she's not the lustful woman others believe her to be, but simply an ordinary lady, and wonders if they could have lived like her parents, who seemed genuinely affectionate. Belita has a terrifying nightmare where she's running through a dark forest, falls and injures her ankle, only to encounter Kaliq in military uniform. In the dream, he's back to his cold, murderous self, accusing her of eloping with a foreign prince and refusing to believe her protests. When she reminds him of his promise not to kill her, Dream Kaliq coldly replies, "I did? I do not recall," and nearly strikes her with a glowing blue sword. She wakes up in a panic, clutching her chest and accidentally slapping the real Kaliq, who's leaning over her with genuine concern. When he asks about the nightmare, she refuses to share details, clearly shaken by the dream's return to their original deadly dynamic. The next morning, Kaliq's advisor asks about proceeding with the annual Imperial Street Festival as usual. This week-long celebration traditionally involves the Empress making public appearances and inspecting the welfare of the people. However, Kaliq reflects on how the previous Belita used these festivals for passionate encounters with visiting foreign noblemen, dancing and embracing them among falling rose petals while fireworks lit up the night. Given Belita's distressed reaction to her nightmare and her recent withdrawal, Kaliq worries that proceeding as usual might not be wise. He's genuinely concerned about their relationship and what the festival might bring, hoping she won't withdraw from him further. The story has reached a crucial turning point where Belita's subconscious fears about returning to their original deadly relationship are surfacing just as they're preparing for a public event that could test their newfound connection. If you love stories like this, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll never miss the next episode, because it's really interesting. And if you want the next part, comment the name Belita.